Welcome to DIYeasycrafts and Berg.Knifemaking.com. Today we're going to take a look at how to make Marsh reed cast resin knife handles. Now these particular knife scales were made for a project that I'm working on. It's a duck hunting themed knife. I'm going to cover the whole knife making and especially the blade etching on the next video. On this video we're just going to concentrate on how I made these Marsh reed scales. So they started out with me just running out to the local marsh and cutting down some reeds. I cut them all to the size of my hand. I then stabilized those reeds in cactus juice. And I actually put these into a vacuum chamber overnight, and then they're cured in a toaster oven, 250 degrees for a couple of hours. What that does is it stabilizes the wood, or in this case, the reed material, and makes it much harder and much more durable. The next step is going to be the casting, the first step of the casting. Now I decided to do these a little bit different. I poured clear resin into the bottom of the molds. Now this is Total Boat thickset resin, and this stuff I really enjoy working with. It's a very thin resin. It takes a little while to cure, a few days, but because it's so thin, all of the bubbles have a chance to reach the surface before getting trapped in the resin. These are the reeds after I took them out of the cactus juice, and I split them lengthwise to expose the cavity inside the reed. Now my fear with working with this stuff is that I was just going to have a problem with a massive amount of bubbles. So I let that clear resin harden for a few days. Then I took these reeds, which I cut in half or split in half lengthwise. I placed them all exactly the way I wanted them, with the opening facing upward. And then I mixed up another batch of Total Boat thickset resin, mixing it slowly for 5 minutes, and then I poured it directly into each reed cavity, and I filled up each side of the mold. Now I have no access to the bottom or what's going to be the top of these scales. So I don't know if there's any bubbles still kind of hanging on to the reeds. I'm expecting some bubbles for this particular project, and those can be very easily dealt with when you're profiling the knife. If you end up with a bubble, you can just fill it with resin. You won't even see it on the finished product. But of course, I do want to reduce the total number of bubbles as much as possible. So I let this cure for about 4 days before I took it out of the mold. You really don't even want to start to work with this stuff until it's cured for at least 4 or 5 days. I was pretty impressed. I didn't even notice any bubbles to start. They're not hard enough to work with yet, but I think these are going to work out nicely for this duck-themed knife. So what I've done here is I've glued a black liner onto the back of each scale, and I polished this one up just to take a better look at it. You can see one little bubble in that upper left-hand corner. So I'll try to avoid that, but if it gets exposed during the profiling, I'll just fill it with clear resin and let it harden, and I'll be done. I'm going to cover the whole knife build on the next video. Please stay tuned for that. If you like this video, I'm going to ask if you please give it a thumbs up and subscribe to the YouTube channel. I would absolutely love to hear some feedback in the feedbacks section or the comment section, and I'd like to give you an invite to join us on our Facebook group, Knives and Knife Making. If you're interested in making your own knives, check out the book that Jason Northgard and I put out a couple of years ago called Introduction to Knife Making, and you can find that on Amazon.com. Thank you very much.